Well, I'm new to Woonsocket. I've only lived here for about 6 months, so I don't have all this baggage that most of you have. But one thing that I've noticed is that a problem that we have that will solve most of the others is all the empty storefronts. If we get those storefronts full of things, that brings jobs and it brings money for taxes that we can use for things like the schools and the water purification and the roads that need to be fixed. I was wondering if any of you three happen to have anything specific that you could do that you would suggest that would try to bring companies here. Now I know the city council has been pushing for small businesses, and I'm hearing that, but a lot of the small businesses I've been seeing have been coming and failing in 6 months, so they give it a try. So I'm wondering if you know of something that you could suggest that would attract businesses here, because the income and the jobs of businesses will give the city council something to do, that they will be able to work on the other issues.
Okay, I didn't write a speech for today, so just so you know, I'm just winging everything. What you see is what you get with me. I understand your question, and I think it's been asked for, I don't know, since I was in high school. We have a situation in our community. Although we were compared to Central Falls, it's a misnomer. Central Falls does not pay for their education. We do. They always trick us with that, just so you're aware in the future. They're nothing like us. However, we have a situation here where we're one of the highest tax paying for businesses in this community. So a business has an option to come to Woonsocket, pay higher taxes, or go to another community and pay lower taxes. So in the situation we are here, we have to work really hard to balance or cut the budget to lower the taxes for businesses without raising the taxes for the taxpayers. Because what we have now in Woonsocket, we have a lot of people that aren't able to work. They're not able to work. They're too old. They're not physically able. I know we have a lot of retirees that can get a part-time job, but that's not true for all of them. So they're stuck with a set income. So every time the taxes go out, it's a reality that they could be homeless. They could lose their house. I just went and visited two different elderly couples in that situation, and they have a real fear. They raise their children here in the city. The grandchildren go to visit them, but they're on set incomes, and most of them have physical disabilities that won't let them go get a little extra part-time job to help make ends meet. So our community, we're in big trouble, so what we need to do is pay attention to that budget. We must pay attention to that budget, make sure we hire when we hire positions, they're really needed, and the community will get something out of it, and use any money that we cut from the budget to lower the taxes for businesses. And we stop moving that way. We also, let me touch on this, I've heard from business owners that they're treated badly when they go to City Hall, that they get the runaround. Nobody will give them the proper information. And I want to see that stop. And the good thing is, I have days, so if a business wants to come in and they say, I'm going to City Hall, I'm getting a runaround, I can volunteer and go there with them and see how they're being treated. That is a big issue in our community, and it's been for many years, so we do need to work on that. So that would be my idea. We got to keep the property, we got to lower the taxes for our businesses, but yet keep the taxes for our homeowners low too. So we're in a tough situation. It's just not an easy fix, but they've been, for the last few years, the city council and administration have been trying to work on that, lowering the taxes for the business. This year they're only able to lower it by 25 cents. I know it's a little, but it's in the right direction. Do you have any other questions? What would you like to hear from?
Okay, so it's not right. Okay, so that's an excellent question, and so I touched upon some of my ideas briefly in my speech. I think the first thing that we need to do is find creative ways to use a lot of these buildings, the old mill buildings and other buildings that our city owns that are on off the tax rolls that are just sitting vacant. And we need to make sure that they're brought up to code and do things like changing zoning laws to allow artist loft spaces to be created so that artists and local craftspeople can live and work in the same space, because that reduces costs for them to start up their businesses. The other thing is renewable energy could actually be a huge boom for our city, because it would allow us to use basically no additional land and produce something as a city. produce a significant amount of energy and therefore a significant amount of value. And so by opening up the roofs of city buildings for solar and city parking lots for solar and working much better with solar developers and other renewable energy developers who may be able to use some of the vacant mill buildings in the city, by working well with them, we could increase the tax base that way. And I think that that's really important because it would also enable, it would reduce unemployment here because they'd be able to employ people in Woonsocket. And I really just think that we need to relook at the zoning laws because they're ancient right now, and we need to change things to allow more mixed-use development around the city where there can be commerce on the bottom floor of a building and then residencies on like the upper floors, because that allows more denser use of space and therefore reduces costs for both the people who are renting or owning those locations and then the businesses on the bottom floor. And a lot of policies like that where we can really sort of redesign the way that we approach allowing businesses to open up here, the way that we approach the use of space in our city. I think it is high time that we get to this point. And that's all I have.
This is a subject that I'm kind of ready for, and thank you very much. That was an excellent question. I appreciate the fact that you asked it. Number one is, I think that a city council person and the mayor needs to look at the bigger picture in order to. I think that. Okay, now we got it. Last time I was talking louder than okay. Number one is we need businesses to come in the city of Woonsocket. How do we do that? Well, when a business wants to come into a community, they'll find a location that they think they like. They'll put a pin in the map. And around that pin, they put a circle. A certain amount of area that they need to find out how much people make. And Woonsocket, the average wage per person is between $32,000 and $35,000. Okay? They take all of that information about all of the communities around that business that they're thinking of renting or buying, and they figure out whether or not there's going to be enough income coming in that circle to be able to support their business. So what do we need to do in the city of Woonsocket? Because $32,000 to $35,000 is not enough money to attract large businesses into our community. We need to go after high-end housing, like the one that's going up on Diamond Hill Road. That one is going to be high-end housing. The middle school, once that is completed, is going to be not high-end, but more expensive rents than the normal rent in Woonsocket. So both of those are going to end up bringing the number up, that average up from 32 to 35, maybe bring it up to 37, 39,000 per person on average. Now, had I been on the council, I would have voted no on purchasing that land that they purchased recently, because there was a segment of that property that was supposed to be high-end housing built on. And unfortunately, only about 40 to 50% of that property was buildable, but it was still buildable in a community that is land poor. And it would have been ideal for high-end housing. Had that been changed so that those parcels could have been used, it would have helped to bring, again, higher wage people into the community, bringing that number up. And the more that we do that, the higher it goes, the more businesses are going to want to come into the city of Woonsocket. Dollar stores are not going to do it. We're not going to get out of trouble bringing in dollar stores. We need more expensive stores. Thank you.